Steve Dace on the line from Michigan Podcast, talking Wolverines and the nation. I've got two subjects to hit you with, and then I'll let you go, Steve. One would be, since you bring up Brian Kelly, he made comments after the loss to Clemson 30-3 that this was a very different situation than what he and his program experienced against Alabama 6 years ago, in that he didn't see a talent gap between his team and Clemson, not a substantial one. And he pointed to just not executing, not coaching good enough in the game, and didn't think that he had a lot of work to do to make that mountain climb as he did against Alabama 6 years ago, when he was just flabbergasted, shocked at the talent difference, but doesn't say says that that is not the reality right now. When you do look at the recruiting rankings, which we both rely on in mass, again, not every individual player, but in total. And I cut and posted a video on this to break down the personnel and the recruiting rankings. They are very similar for the past 5 seasons between Notre Dame and Clemson, kind of that notch below Alabama, Ohio State, and what is now Georgia. It's that 7 to 15 range for all those recruiting classes for Notre Dame and Clemson. So if the recruiting rankings are accurate, the talent should be very close for those two football teams, but I didn't see it displayed on the field that way.
Well, I agree with Coach Kelly that this is not like what happened in 2012, where after that first Eddie Lacy run, you knew this go get UGLY, you ain't got no out.
Absolutely. I made the same point. Yep.
Yeah, I agree with him. It's not like that. But here's what I would say. What's happened is, Clemson, Dabo Swinney is an underrated coach, as crazy as that is to sound, or as crazy as that sounds. They recruit a lot of 3-star guys. I mean, Michigan has recruited more 4-star guys in the last 3 classes than Clemson has. I looked that up too. He's really good at finding raw athletes and developing a skill set to find them on the field. And now what's happening is Clemson and Alabama now, because the first quarter and a half, Notre Dame was with them at the line of scrimmage. They hung in. And what changed is the skill set that you're talking about. Alabama and Clemson might have the #1 overall picks in the next 2 drafts. Tua Tagovailoa in the 2020 draft, and then Trevor Lawrence in the 2021 draft. Except they're not just the #1 overall picks in the draft. They're the #1 overall picks in the draft at the most important position in the sport. And when you go back and look at, what Deshaun Watson did to Alabama 2 years in a row in national championship games, and he faced Alabama defenses that all 22 guys that started in those 2 national championship games for Alabama have started a game in the NFL. That's incredible. And in those 2 games, Deshaun Watson put up almost 800 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, destroyed them, and nearly beat them twice, beat them once. And that's when he didn't quite have, I would argue, Clemson has better talent in the trenches now than they had when Deshaun Watson was there. So what you're dealing with now is Alabama and Clemson have taken the next step in their evolutions, where now, even if you can match them in the trenches, they have now evolved schematically and with the kinds of quarterbacks they're recruiting, that now they are fully utilizing all the weapons they have. And that's what Notre Dame ran into. Ian Book has had a really nice year for Notre Dame. He may be your, a NFL journeyman backup quarterback, maybe. And so what happened is, when Clemson figured out, hey, Notre Dame can match us in the trenches. We're not just going to Travis Etienne them down the throat like we did the ACC. And they said to Trevor Lawrence, all right, man, let's sling it. No answer. And that's the same thing that you're running into now with Tua in Alabama. When you gang up in the running game, Nick's like, all right, sling it all over the field. I don't care. For Nick Saban is now willing to win games 56-28, 45-31. He wasn't willing to do that 5 years ago, Mark. And so the evolution that those 2 teams have taken offensively have sustained their elite. In many respects, those 2 programs have taken the step of evolution Michigan needs to take to get to where they're at. Those 2 teams have stayed there by taking this step. And I think that's the challenge now for Notre Dame. The quarterback they wanted in this incoming class, Cade McNamara, who set all the passing records in Nevada, decommitted from Notre Dame to come to our school. And so the challenge now, I think Michigan has that kind of quarterback in Shea. I definitely think Dylan McCaffrey in the future is that kind of quarterback for Michigan. The question now becomes, will Jim Harbaugh permit those guys to do that? And Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney have permitted Tua and Trevor Lawrence to transform the way they play football at their two schools, which has now taken the athletic advantage they have to a totally different level.
We've got Steve Deace on the line from Michigan Podcast, talking Wolverines and the nation. Steve, you know that I could talk college football with you all night. It's a great contrast from some of the tweets I was trading with a number of folks that were of that trolling community that you were talking about last night during the various bowl games, and some of the conversations I get myself stuck into. I just can't believe I need to detach from some of the ridiculous conversation. So Steve provides a great analysis on his Michigan podcast. Again, you can catch it on all the major audio platforms, as well as right here on YouTube. It's smart analysis for the smart fan. That's what we love right here.